right, perfect. Everybody, thank you for joining us today for industry update. We appreciate you getting on the call. As always, please have your lines muted and use the chat feature for asking any questions, which will be addressed at the end of the presentation. We are recording this and we'll send out the recording to everybody that has registered, and we'll have this up on our website for future review. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to John and Melissa.
Thank you, Hope, and welcome everyone. Appreciate you being with us today for this week's edition of the PRLA weekly webinar update. As a reminder, this event is designed for the use and benefit of our hotel, catering, restaurant, and travel and tourism partners and members and non-members, and all of those that are friends of the industry. This, however, is not a press event. It is off the record. So if you're with the press and would like to chat with us about anything related to the industry, please reach out to us directly and disconnect at this time. And for the rest of you, again, welcome. Glad to have you with us. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Melissa Bova.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Let's jump right into federal, because I think that's where we're going to spend most of our time today, unless we go through a bunch of questions. Today, I want to go through top level what we know details regarding the RRG. Well, it's kind of RRFG, but I just call it the RRF, which is the Restaurant Revitalization Grant Program. That's that $28 billion that was passed by Congress for those in the industry that sell food and beverage that have been really impacted by COVID. If you have not looked at it yet, the National Restaurant Association put out a really awesome FAQ, and it's honest in terms of, in some places, that's a great question, but we don't know the answer yet. They're still working through a lot of details with the SBA right now, but I wanted to go over through some top level items so you have a feel for the direction that things are going. So it is eligible entities, does consist of your general restaurants, caterers, bar lounges, inns, breweries, brew pubs, tap rooms, wineries, distilleries, bakeries, anything that produces alcohol or provides food to the public. So those are the eligible entities. Now for my hotels, for my breweries, for my distilleries, for my wineries, to be eligible, you have to have on-site sales of food and beverage to the public of at least 33% of gross receipts. So that's really the standard that you need to meet if you are a brewery or a winery, distillery, or a hotel to be eligible for the RRF. Some other things I just wanted to flag. A key part of this for a lot of my friends on here who were not open in 2019 or 2020, or you opened later in 2020, as you are all painfully aware, you were not eligible for the P3 because of that. You are eligible for this grant. So this is now a grant that's available to those of you that might have opened in 2020 during COVID when you were not eligible for other grants prior to that. Another key part of this is that eligibility will be deducting your P3 from it. So you're determining your total loss of revenue from 2019 minus what you made in 2020. And then if you had P3 loans, those will need to be deducted from that amount to determine how much grant you are eligible for. Your EIDL loans, as far as we know, your grants that you're getting locally will not be counted into that. Your EIDLs definitely won't. We're working on ensuring that if you're getting a CHIRP grant or something like that, that will not be required to be deducted as well. So we're pushing hard, or the National Restaurant Association is pushing hard to make sure that it's only your P3 that would be deducted from your total amount in terms of how much you can receive. Another thing that I do just want to make sure that's out there now, and as you know, you don't need that DUNS and SAMS number, but it was a fun exercise for all of us to go through that. The biggest thing that you all do need to know now is that for the first 21 days, this is going to be limited to women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, or socially and economically disadvantaged small businesses. So they're going to have first crack at this grant money, which is why once that's over, you need to make sure your applications are going in. And to that point, you need to recognize that $28 billion is only going to go so far. So keep in mind that this is great, but we're probably going to need more funds to keep it going. And the first 21 days, most of us will not be eligible to apply for those grants, but you will want to make sure you're ready to apply when the time comes. Once you get your money, it's going to go into your bank account that you provide. It's supposed to be a very straightforward application. And I think Ben just put that in there. We do have an example of what that application is going to look like. So you can prepare for whatever tax information, whatever business information you're going to need for that. Your gross receipts is all revenue in whatever forms received or accrued from whatever sources. So it's pretty much all your revenue is going to be used to determine what you're eligible for. And a big question that we've been getting that we're still looking for clarification on, and we've been kind of running into this a little bit with the P3 as well, is alcohol considered an allowable expense for this grant? With the P3, it's actually up to your bank to determine if it's allowable. The NRA is hoping to get the SBA to confirm that alcohol purchases, because it's part of operating your business, would be an allowable expense for this grant, but we're waiting for that. So with all of that being said, we still have a lot of questions that we need answered. But to that end, the NRA will be having a webinar they thought by the end of this week, it looks like it might be next week, with the SBA to go through a lot of those questions, because they do plan to open up this grant program within the next week or two. And as I said, for the first 21 days, only certain entities are eligible for the grant, but they will be opening up the application process. So please stay tuned once that webinar gets set up. Register for it, because it will be with the SBA leaders in terms of answering all of the questions for the RRF. So that is moving forward very quickly. I think faster than I think we thought it would, which is not a bad thing on that end either. I will see. I see Wendy's question, so I'm going to answer that right now. For a small business owned and controlled by women, an eligible small business, you have to be at least 51% owned by one or more women. So Wendy, you need to get some more control from your husband for your business to be eligible. So that should answer that question. And then, I'll answer Allison's question as well. Given that SBA administered shuttered venue operators grant is temporarily on hold, do you really believe they're going to open RRF in 2 weeks? As you all know, the shuttered venue operators grant, that they crashed within minutes of opening up. That could be a situation with the RRF. The hope is that they will figure out all the kinks with the shuttered venue grant, and then we will open up. But I would not be surprised if we have a server crashing situation, at least on the first day, and hopefully they figure that out quickly. But it sounds like as of right now, they are looking forward to having it open within 2 weeks. Now, that could change, but I think that the hope is to get this done so they don't need to worry about it anymore. Some other national items I just want to touch upon. The IRS did a clarification for the business meal deduction. As you know, part of the legislation that was passed in December allows business meal deduction for 2021 and 2022. So it's January 1 of 21 to December 31st of 2023 or 2022. And that can be for on or off premise consumption of food and beverage. So that's something for businesses and items that are looking to deduct that. It can be for on or off premise consumption. The IRS did just clarify that. Next topic of fun and joy. In 2019, before COVID happened, the biggest issue we all had were getting employees. Who would have thought in 2021, the biggest issue we would have times 10 is getting employees? PRLA is working through options on how we can help all of you access more employees. We know a situation we're looking at is unemployment compensation. People don't want to come off unemployment compensation. We know that you lost a lot of employees through no fault of your own, because they went to jobs that weren't getting shut down by the governor every 2 or 3 months. So we're working through that. But one of the items that we have right now is there is a letter going to President Biden. A lot of you are looking at seasonal employees to try and get through the summer. Currently, there's a lot, it's not that they're not allowed to come to the USA, but a lot of embassies, and there's a lot of issues in getting those students registered and able to come to the US. So we're not meeting any of our benchmarks. So a letter was put out that's going to be sent to the president asking for assistance to encourage more J1 visas, encourage more students to come over and work in the industry or in any industry for seasonal time. So that was in our daily update yesterday. So if you're interested in signing on to that letter, they're looking for businesses to sign on. We will put a link in the chat box. It was in the update yesterday, though, just to give you an FYI that is something that we're signing on to and we're supporting. And PRLA also did sign on to that letter. To that end, speaking of all things nationally, and I've talked about it every week, it's been in the update, I think, every day. The National Restaurant Association Public Affairs Conference is next week, which means that those of you registered are going to be hanging out via Zoom with John and I pretty much all day next Wednesday and Thursday. I know you can't imagine a better way to spend your time. We are scheduling meetings with almost our entire congressional delegation. So to that end, there will not be a PRLA webinar next week since John and I are both unavailable. So if you haven't signed up for the Public Affairs Conference, you might as well, because you have nothing to do now next week at 11 a.m. But just to flag that for all of you, there will not be a webinar next week. And of course, we will pick up on the 28th with the webinars. State. Not a ton of things happening, but there's always something happening. Yesterday, John testified at the Senate Majority Policy Committee hearing as it pertains to the impact that COVID has had on the tourism industry. John, I don't know if you want to provide an update on that since you were there.
I'd be happy to.
Overview of what was just.
I'd be happy to, Melissa. Senator Mario Scavello is the new chairman of this Senate Majority Policy Committee. And if you don't understand what that is, that would be all of the Republican senators are essentially a member of that committee. And he hosted a committee, which might have been the longest hearing, or a committee hearing might have been the longest hearing I've attended, which had 18 testifiers. But I will say that he had a really, really good lineup representing all aspects of the hospitality and tourism industry. We had 4 destination marketing organizations that did a great job on the panel there, including Pittsburgh, Happy Valley, the Pocono Mountains, and Philadelphia. Dom Savino testified on behalf of private events, and I know Dom's on this call now and has been absolutely critical in trying to bring attention to the private events. Trip Ravain from Barley Creek, many, many others. And what was important about it is that this is a group that has to understand the importance of getting funding to not just restaurants and hotels, but the entire travel and tourism industry. And we made that point yesterday. And then secondly, I will say that there's always good press that comes out of this, particularly when you have so many people that had made so many quotable comments. So there was also, by the way, the Amusement Parks and Attractions Association was represented as well. It was a really, really well done lineup on the part of Senator Scavello and his team there. So again, to all of you on the call who testified, and there's a few others there, thank you for doing so. Appreciate it.
Okay, so the next item on here, which it says RRF fund, but it looks like when I wrote the slides late yesterday, I was just making up words. So really, I mean, the American Rescue Plan, PRLA's next steps. I just wanted to kind of let you all know where we are. As you know, the state is receiving about $13 billion from the American Rescue Plan. They'll get half this year, half next year. Vaguely, the guidance, which of course we're waiting for more information on, is that 25% of that needs to be used for hospitality, travel, and tourism in some way or the other. Now, our good friends in the legislature tend to get a little creative in terms of using things for their defined usage, but PRLA has updated, which is why the next item on the list is the updated legislative priority list. We've updated our list to reflect some of the uses that we believe should be available, valid uses of those funds, of the American Rescue Plan funds. So some of those are expanding CHIRP in 2 ways, putting more money in it. That's the $145 million, which went poof within a week of those applications opening. So adding more funds to that, but then also expanding that to other entities. It didn't make sense for us to expand it with just the 145 million, but if we can get another 350 million added to that, there's a lot of value in expanding it to the broader hospitality and tourism community that might not have been eligible in the first round. Second is we are looking, we need to promote Pennsylvania again. All of you rely on tourism and we need to be promoting that again. So PRLA will be advocating for $20 million to be used to promote Pennsylvania to other states like we haven't been doing for years. So we will be asking for 20 million for that. And for our local tourism promotion, we're supporting a bill that would create a $15 million grant program for our destination marketing organizations to help them start promoting their local sites as well and their regions. So those are some of the things that we have that we believe that these funds should be used for. A broader use of the funds are, as you all know, a lot of your employees are still on unemployment. We don't want you to have an increase in charges next year because your employees are on unemployment through no fault of your own. So we're advocating to ensure relief from charges. So everybody who's on unemployment in 2021, you will not see an increase in your charges in 2022 when those are naturally increased. So those are some of the updates and changes that we made to reflect the American Rescue Plan. We'll continue to work through all of that over the coming weeks, but we wanted to make sure that we had a plan to put forward to the legislature because our industry, as we all know and feel, has been more impacted than any other. And we want to make sure that the use of the funds accurately reflects the needs of our industry. PLCB, it's Independent Regulatory Review Commission changes, if you want to know what IRC means. It's basically some rule changes that the LCB has put forward. One has to do with ethyl alcohol. The second is for my licensees. As you all know, to get your 10% licensee discount, you need to spend at least $50 at the state store. They've removed the $50 limit. So if you go and get a bottle of Smirnoff vodka for $16, whatever it is, you would still get your 10% licensee discount. So it removed the $50 minimum there. Looking ahead, because we will not have a webinar next week, PRLA's Policy Committee, which is our 3 legislative committees, our Alcohol Service Committee, our Government Affairs Committee, and our Lodging and Tourism Committee, will be meeting on April 27th in Harrisburg to update our 3-year legislative plan. For those of you that might not have been as engaged in PRLA before COVID, PRLA, every year our committees come together and determine what our legislative priorities are for the next 3 years. We usually meet in January. Didn't make a lot of sense to meet in January this year. And now that we see the light, we hope at the end of the tunnel, we want to start looking ahead at some of our legislative priorities. So items like minimum wage, tipped wage, association health plans, Save Our Summers campaign as it pertains to post-Labor Day school start. All of those are items that were PRLA priorities previous to COVID. So the committees will come together and take a fresh look at all of those and decide our priorities moving forward. So stay tuned in the daily update for that updated 3-year plan following that meeting. And then, of course, after the policy committee meets, we will be meeting with a number of legislators that are going to be in town that week just to continue to push forward with our legislative priorities. So we're looking forward to seeing people and also to look ahead to post-COVID and what our industry needs once we get through this and are out on the other side. State mitigation, some of the frequent questions that I wanted to just post out here because we've been getting them, and I have a third one to add because I always add something. Outdoor capacity is 50% of 67 per 1,000. So that's how you're determining your outdoor occupancy if you don't have a fire code outdoors. So that's outdoor for your events. If you have outdoor seating for your restaurant, you're just using social distancing. As a reminder, you cannot have any standing cocktail hours at this time in Pennsylvania. The rule continues to apply. If you are eating or drinking, you need to be seated. You can, if somebody wants to get up to the buffet and get, a cheese and meat plate, and they have to go back to their seat and sit down. If they want to go to the bar and get a drink, they have to go back to their seat to sit down to drink it. Same thing with dance floors, permitted, They need to be wearing their masks, and no food or beverages can be consumed on the dance floor. So I just wanted to reiterate that. To segue into the vaccine update, I want to thank Michael Leifer from the Peanut Bar, who's on this call, for giving me a question that I actually had to look up, which it feels like that's rare for me now. But some of you are still, with these variants happening, are getting COVID cases within your restaurants, and he asked for a clarification on something. So I wanted to provide it here. If you have a COVID case within your restaurant, somebody tests positive for COVID, God forbid, or your hotel or your business generally, if your employees are vaccinated, they're 2 weeks from their vaccine, so they're more than 2 weeks post Moderna, Pfizer, or J&J, and they're not showing symptoms, they do not need to quarantine. So if somebody tests positive, your vaccinated employees do not need to quarantine if they're not showing symptoms. So I wanted to reiterate that, so all of you know how to handle that, because I even had to look that one up. And then, of course, I'm sure you guys are going to throw some other questions in the chat, which I will address as well. Vaccine update. As I said, I don't ever like to be right, but I enjoy it sometimes when I am. As you all know, we were really worried about our industry being in 1C. And I think I tried to make myself and all of you feel better by saying, I think when we reach that point, it's going to be opened up to everybody, and it's not going to matter where we are. And poof, it happened. So vaccines are open to everybody in the state of Pennsylvania right now. I had a conversation yesterday with the administration. They're not worried about the J&J situation. They only plan to halt it until the 21st to make sure that there are no issues. But there's plenty of Moderna and Pfizer vaccines out there. So they're not worried about people not being able to be vaccinated or not having enough vaccines. So that's not a concern that they have. As you know, everything is open. So all of your employees, whether you're in anywhere in Pennsylvania, can start signing up for the vaccine. And then I think for Philadelphia, they're opening it up on the 19th, but Ben will correct me if I'm wrong. So just wanted to flag that for all of you. I do know there is a lot of talk out there about legislation at the state level regarding vaccine passports, about not ensuring that you can't mandate vaccines. We're working through all of that with the legislature, and we'll provide updates when the time comes. So just wanted to flag that. We know that legislation is floating out there. PRLA's Government Affairs Committee met. We certainly don't think the state should be mandating anything, but we also want you as business owners to make the right decisions for your business. You're all different. You need to make the right decisions to operate your business, and that's what we believe legislation that's passed should consider when they're passing it. Sorry, Eric, I didn't mean to mess you up by jumping back to state on you. Philadelphia, no changes. Dr. Farley announced that they would be making an announcement by the end of the month about lifting mitigation. PRLA and a number of our members, our caterer members and our hotel members, testified at a hearing last week to basically, draw to the attention of City Council the issues of Philadelphia not allowing mitigation. New York City is now more open than Philadelphia. Chicago is more open than Philadelphia. So we pushed hard on that, and we hope that we will see a lifting of mitigation in Philadelphia by the end of the month. If that does not happen, I do believe that City Council is starting to raise their concerns to the health department, and hopefully that will help us move the needle there as well. And then for my friends in Philadelphia, tomorrow we expect the outdoor entertainment bill to pass. Currently, you cannot have any outdoor entertainment, music, or anything in the city of Philadelphia. So legislation that is being passed that will allow you to have that outdoor entertainment. So that should be passed tomorrow and signed pretty quickly by the mayor. And I think that gets me to the end of my stuff, and I'll turn it over. I do want to flag for the Lehigh Valley chapter meeting and the Keystone chapter, which we'll probably highlight these in the future. They are legislative roundtables. So please, if you're in Lehigh Valley or Keystone chapter, make sure you register for that to meet with your legislators. Sorry, I'll turn it over to you, Hope.
Okay. So the chapter meetings are coming up, and as Melissa highlighted, 2 of them are legislative roundtables. You can register for these on our website underneath the calendar. If you have any questions, though, you can reach out to Heidi Howard about these chapter events, but these are great ways to connect with your local restaurant and hotel and industry, other members, and then obviously for the legislators for these roundtables. Next. Oh, and for the allied members, just to let you know, back when Eric, there will be a town hall meeting for all of our purveyors to the industry. Heidi and Eric will be hosting that on the 26th. So please join them on that call. I think that you can register on our website also for that. Okay, sorry. So next week, we will be having a webinar on the 22nd. It is talk about what Melissa was talking about, mandatory vaccinations. We are bringing an attorney from Oft Kerman to talk about, the best options for you to have a thought out plan for your employees and your business. So Catherine Bastia will be addressing mandatory vaccinations, incentive plans, discrimination concerns, and will be there to answer any of your questions you may have with, talking with your employees about encouraging them to get the vaccination and what you can and cannot do within your business. Melissa will be back on the 28th, but as always, since we are taking next week off, if you have questions, please reach out to us through email or calling us at the office, and we will definitely help you out as best we can. The national organization will be hosting a webinar on the 22nd to talk about the future of tipping under the current administration. They'll just be talking about the efforts to modify minimum wage, tip credit, and some of the legal developments in other states and things you should be thinking about. And again, the OSHA compliance webinar will be at the end of the month, just talking about how to operate safely during the pandemic. Next slide. So as always, the job board, we've been talking about this, and Melissa mentioned it a little bit. We really would like you to take advantage of this, add your jobs to this. We are actively working with Food Shelter, our PR company, to build an awareness campaign around the job board and targeting potential employees. So please use this as a resource, and we are looking actively to get this promoted out to get employees into your businesses. So, the National Restaurant Association will be relaunching the Serve Safe Dining commitment. We had a call with them yesterday in late May, and we encourage you to look at this program again. They have lifted some of what they're asking of you and not requiring as much from you other than just to have at least one employee with a valid Serve Safe Manager certificate. This is a great way to build guest confidence and have people coming in. There are marketing kits that they have, digital marketing kits for your website, things you can post in your establishment. And we are going to be building a campaign around this also to help get people back into your restaurant. So please take advantage of this. The metrics that we saw is PA is the 7th highest of traffic on the map of people looking for people that are using the dining commitment. So people are going to their website and people are looking at this. So please take advantage of this free program. Again, training. I'm always talking about this. Please make sure you're getting your employees up to date with their Serve Safe and with their food safety certification. They will be out and they will be looking to see that you're up to date. And this is obviously important to build confidence with the guests too. And right now we're in the middle of our virtual competition with our Pro-Start schools, with our high school programs. They've submitted some really great dishes. Our judges are actively watching their videos, and we will be meeting with the schools over the last 2 weeks of April to talk about the dishes and their proposals. And we're really excited to award some really awesome scholarship opportunities and support to their programs, because these programs have been hit really hard this year without being able to fundraise and go out and do catering jobs. And with that being said, please support your local CTE programs as best you can through their advisory committees or through anything you can do to support the students to get them into your establishments to work, because they are definitely ready to go out and work. And I think that's it. I think there's a lot of links.
Need workers, so it's a win-win.
It is a win-win. And if you need the names of any of the teachers, just reach out to me. I probably will have an email that you can reach out to them at.
Okay, so with that, I skipped over Crystal's question, so I want to go back to it. Question on the RRF grant, can B&Bs that provide wedding services, catering, and event services apply? Yes, as long as 33% of their gross receipts is on-site sale of food and beverage. So it might be a B&B that does weddings, but if they don't have more than 33% of sales as food and beverage sales, then that wouldn't be permissible. So they have to meet that 33% threshold to be eligible. Postings. Okay. Could you please remind me who is chair of the Liquor Control Committee? We have a new chair. It's Representative Carl Metzger from Somerset County. So I'm going to confirm that. I'm pretty sure he's Somerset. He is the new chair of the House Liquor Control Committee, and he is Somerset. So that was good on my part. So he is chair of House Liquor Control and Senate Law and Justice Committee, which is what deals with liquor issues. That's Senator Mike Regan. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Rick, for posting that link. Are dance floors allowed indoor if they have a mask on? Yes. Well, except probably in Philadelphia. Philadelphia, I think you still can't have dance floors, but Ben will correct me if I'm wrong. In 66 other counties, for sure, dance floors are allowed indoor if they have a mask on. They also need to social distance like a middle school dance. So you still have to have the social distancing, but you can have dance floors if they are 6 foot social distance and wearing masks, and there's no food or beverage on the dance floor. For where did you find the vaccine update? I think Steph posted the CDC guidance, but it is actually in the PA Department of Health guidance as well. For what I mentioned, I'm putting it in the chat. For what I mentioned as it pertains to if your employees are vaccinated and there's a COVID case in the business. So I just put that in the chat box. And I did answer that question, Crystal. FYI, affiliate began the plastic bag ban program on July 1st, 2021. The actual ban begins October 1st, 2021, and enforcement begins on April 1st, 2022. Thank you, Donnie. It was actually supposed to begin 2 years ago, but the state legislature keeps on preempting it and saying they can't. So as of right now, yes, the plastic bag ban is set to begin on July 1st, unless there is another line in a budget document at the state level, which extends it again. But that, you're right, Donnie. As of right now, that's where it is. But we do have the past 2 years within the budget, they have stopped Philadelphia from being able to move forward with it. In Philadelphia, for catered events, if providing boxed dinners, can guests come up to a station to grab their box, or must it be brought to the guests' tables? So in Philadelphia, you can only have a business event. So I'm assuming you're referring to a business meeting in the city of Philadelphia. They can go and grab their box and go sit down. Everybody needs to be socially distanced from everybody else. They have to be 6 feet separated. So they can grab it and sit back down, or it can be brought to them at their table, but that is only for a business meeting. You can't have any type of wedding, baby shower, bridal shower, funeral, or anything like that in the city of Philadelphia right now. Hope that answered that question, but let me know if I didn't get that right, or I didn't address the question. Could you talk about barriers used to separate tables and how that interplays with max occupancy? If you can't get 75% by using the formulas, barriers don't get you closer, right? So barriers, they've expanded the use of barriers with the intention that they're trying to get you closer. So before, you could only have barriers if you had bench seating that was back to back, and then every other table had to be 6 feet away. So they're effort to help you get to 75% now is that you can use barriers anywhere. So you don't need 6 feet between tables if you have a barrier in place. And that's their intention, to try and get restaurants above 50%, because we all know you're not getting above 50% if you have 6 feet of social distancing. So a barrier, you only need 2 feet between tables, or 3 feet, whatever you need. As long as there's a barrier there, you don't need to check the 6 foot box. So that's the intention behind the barriers. Melissa, I understand your point about 2-week post-vaccine, but I do not believe we are permitted to even ask that question of employees. That, Sean, is probably a question for the webinar next week, because you are as a business allowed to require vaccination. And I don't believe that you are forbidden from asking, you're not forbidden from requiring them to have a vaccine. So I don't believe you're forbidden from checking to see if they have been vaccinated. But that is a legal question to which I'm not a lawyer that I don't feel comfortable asking, but there are a lot of caveats to what is usually kind of a HIPAA violation that doesn't apply to vaccines because of the fact that this is kind of a worldwide pandemic. So Sean, that might be something to ask on the webinar next week, just to get a further clarification on that. Nightclubs can now operate at 50% capacity. Yes, nightclubs can operate, but the same rules apply. So if they're drinking, they need to sit in a seat. If they're dancing, they can't bring their drinks on the dance floor. So nightclubs can operate in a new, interesting fashion than they ever did before. Regarding box meals served in Philly, yes. If it's an outdoor event, yes. Outdoors, you can have events like weddings and things in Philadelphia. You cannot have them indoors. And yes, Sean, you did stump me. That one, yeah, that one stumped me. Let's see. Ben put up the catered event guidance for everybody. Hey, Melissa, any additional conversations scheduled with the administration in regards to relaxing the mitigation efforts? We are a large wedding venue and our brides are extremely anxious for May and beyond, as you can imagine. The governor's office is looking to take another step in terms of relaxing mitigation in May. That's their hope, their dreams. That's what they want to happen. The increasing cases, we need to work through that, but we hope to have a conversation with them within the next week to try and get a feel to make sure that we are continuing to move forward in increasing that outdoor event capacity, but even more importantly, that indoor event capacity. Nightclubs, they can dance but not stand. They can dance as long as they have their mask on, their 6-foot social distance, and they don't have a drink on the floor, but they need to have a seat if they're drinking alcohol. Now they can stand if they're not drinking alcohol or eating whatever you eat in a nightclub. In Philadelphia, yes, in Philadelphia, there is still a food requirement and you have to do last call by 11 p.m. in Philadelphia. Yes, Philadelphia remains the place where dreams go to die or private events can't exist. I think I'm getting to the end of the questions. And Sean, I'm going to find out the answer to that question because now it's bothering me. I say that you can make sure they're vaccinated, but I might be lying. So I'm going to look into it. John, did you answer the question so I don't have to? Is that what that link is?
That link is an answer to it. There's a lot of answers to it. Most of them are yes, you can ask, but there are some caveats in it. And that Chicago Tribune article is probably maybe the most succinct one about it. But there
Well,
are
There
some,
you go. Now we have an answer.
there are some caveats though.
Melissa, did you see Allison's follow-up to your barriers answer?
Oh, okay. Follow the barriers. I thought guidance said something that can be used as long as maximum occupancy is observed. Do they mean the 75% or the occupancy that the business formulates? It's 75% of your fire code, or if you don't have a fire code, what that weird formula is that you have to determine what your fire code is. So you can't go above 75% even with barriers. 75% is your maximum if you self-certify, but you can use barriers to get yourself to 75%. But Allison, let me know if I didn't answer that.
I think we're good. Well, thank you,
Okay.
everybody. Thanks, Melissa and John, and everybody for getting on the call. I appreciate it. And to everybody that, Melissa, a webinar from yesterday, Independent Restaurant. Do you know that?
I do not, but I can tell you that the NRA's webinar is going to be similar, if not better than that. PRLA is not a partner of the IRC, so I don't know the answer to that question, but I can tell you that the NRA is going to have a similar, if not better, webinar. That's the one I mentioned earlier. So that will be beginning of next week, if not end of this week.
To that point, Melissa, the reason why the NRA has not held it yet is because all the information isn't out. So the one that was put together yesterday, while it came out earlier, isn't as complete as the one will be that the National Restaurant Association will do, simply because they'll have more information.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks
Thanks,
for getting
everybody.
on the call. I appreciate it. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And as always, reach out to us if you need anything in between. And I hope everybody stays safe and has a great week.
Thanks, Hope. Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Steph, and everyone else. And Eric.